Introducing myself, I'm Claudia Peters. I've lived in town for 37 years, and it's my honor to actually curate some of these pictures that I took in 2019 on a very wonderful trip to the Alpine districts and a few more, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. So I will begin right now by asking you, if you can see, this. So I'm going to ask you, have anyone been to the Alps before? Oh, Rosemary. Oh, we got about 7 or 8 hands up. Now, does this look like anything you climbed or did? No. Oh, okay. Well, there you can see the hang glider at the top, right? You see that person? Well, this is an AI-generated picture. It's nothing I took, okay? But everything from here on in, even if they're terrible photographs, I didn't pick it off of Google. They're all from my camera, okay? So I apologize if some of it isn't clear or if some of it's unfocused, as my children constantly tell me, Mom, you think that's not fuzzy? So what I'll do my best is to intersperse my talking. There's a good 75 slides with the time allotted. And I think to kind of give you a sense of procedure, if you want to ask a question, it's okay to shout it, but if you give me a nonverbal first, I can kind of, finish the thought and then I'll call on you, okay? And I might be calling on you by what you wear, since there's no name badges here, okay? Sorry, Dave. All right, so this trip took place in 2019, and it was a combination of a very long trip that I had planned by myself after not returning to Europe for, I went in my late 20s, so it's over 50 years. So I went, I just recognized someone. So I went to the common source of using a tour, and you're going to see it as we go forward. But it embedded a tour at the front with Rick Steves called My Way Alpine. Then I drove down to the south of France in Provence to meet my younger son, Chris, and we toured Provence for several days. And then he drove me over to Italy to start Venice. He went home, and then I went on a second Rick Steves tour called My Way Italy. So this is a very longer than a month experience. You're going to see about 16 to 17 days of it, curated and compacted. So I hope you enjoy it. So what we have here is, now hopefully the contrast can show you. I'm going to explain the cities and the dates, or the day's stay, on these countries. But first I'm going to show you. You see my August 2019 trip started in Prague? Well, if you're watching me, if you look carefully here, if you follow the faded, this is Germany. You go down to Salzburg, it's Austria. Then you go down to the Italian Dolomites, a little bit of Switzerland, up into the Lauterbrunnen Valley. Then you're going back into France. You see France? Chamonix is French, but you don't happen to see Czechoslovakia, do you? No, which is where Prague is. Well, this is Czechoslovakia. So what I'm going to explain to you is, knowing I'm going to go to this incredible alpine terrain, I thought, is there anything from seasoned friends that have traveled to Europe many times that I shouldn't miss? And they told me you can't miss Prague. Well, Prague happens to be just about above the Z, just about up there in Czechoslovakia. So what I'm going to show you is, poor planning. And I'm going to give you travel tip number 1. Here we go. So I tried to fly into Prague and then eventually do a little touring in Prague and go down and start my trip with Rick Steves. So let me show you what happened. I think I'm going to keep the pointer on and off. I apologize about that. So now I'm going to try to show you if your map and orientation. I won't do a lot of embedded maps, but sometimes at the beginning of a presentation I appreciate the geography again, because this alpine area of Europe is a lot smaller than you think. All right. So you're going to see that here, is probably where Salzburg is. Prague is right about there. Then we're going down to that Italian Dolomites. We're going to go right up into the Swiss Alps right there. That's Switzerland. This is a hook of Austria. This is where the Swiss Alps are, if you can see that on the map. And Chamonix is just about here. So I knew for me to get here, I wanted to get a flight that would get me to Prague, spend a couple days, and get down to Salzburg. So I did a connection. I did a flight from Logan to Heathrow on one major airline. And then I made a decision to do an EasyJet connection from Heathrow to Prague. Well, I'm going to show you what happened.
Yeah.
You all can, those of you that are travelers probably have a prediction. Any prediction what happened?
You had to go back to Iceland. Zurich?
Well, let's find out. All right. Well, I had a 3.5-hour delay on the tarmac in Boston. So what ended up happening, and I'm sorry, you're going to have a lot of 3-part screens. So this is just anybody's flight information when you're looking for departures. And this is Claudia. Wait a minute. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Claudia leaving from, oh, wait a minute. Luton, what's that? Well, that's a different airport. And going to Prague. And when is she going? Oh my gosh, she's going at, if you take 10 away from 19, I'm so sorry. If you take 10 away from 19, 12 away from 19, she's leaving at 10 o'clock at night. I'm sorry, do the arithmetic for me, I'm a little nervous. 7 o'clock at night, and I'm arriving in Prague at 10 o'clock. And I'm a solo, single, female traveler, okay? So how did this happen? Well, I ended up arriving in Heathrow, and we were hurtled off to some place that wasn't even affiliated with the airline. Guess what? When you have 2 carriers, look at the bottom point, 2 different airlines, there's no mercy. They're not going to rebook you. So we were cattle herded over to this place. The Greek family of 5 standing in front of me were told, well, we can give you a new flight on a different airline, but it's 5 days from today. They said, well, no, thank you. We'll try a different solution. And I begin to call back home, and I'm getting no help. By courtesy of some wonderful, compassionate travelers, they send me down to the airline's actual booth, and I appeal to 2 Cambridge University students, can you find me a different flight? And so they're trying to help me find it. And now I almost begin to melt. Not cry yet, but melt. And I do appeal to the gate person, and she was wonderful. She said, look, miss, just go to Luton. I've got a flight for you tonight. Why didn't I just change my hotel reservation in Prague? Well, I wasn't going to give up that $250. Oh, no, I wasn't. I was standing firm. So I said, oh, what is Luton? She said, it's another airport. I said, how do I get there? She says, it's so easy. You take this train and you take that bus connection. I said, what if I get lost? She says, you won't. And she mapped it all out on me in a little paper napkin. And to this day, I'm so grateful for that agent's assistance to get me from Heathrow safely to Luton Airport to pick up this flight. So you following me so far?
Yeah.
It's quite a start.
It's hard.
Very hard. All right. So I get to Prague. Why, said my friend, should you go to Prague? Because Prague was an amazing city that didn't have much of the destruction that all other European cities had during World War II. In fact, there's much of the most preserved sets of architecture and, well, art obviously can be moved around, but architecture from, well, prior to the 13th century, well up into the modern 20th and 21st century. So what you see here is that I'm giving you a little bit of history about Prague. We're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the culture of this city before we get up into the Alps. Is that okay with all of you?
Yeah.
If you've been to Prague, don't go to sleep on me, okay? It's a beautiful city. So what you see here is Prague, Czechia, which it is now called, and I'll show you on the map in a minute. It used to be Czechoslovakia, and Czechoslovakia, as I've said earlier, was spared, that area of the world was spared much of the bombing during World War II. When Czechoslovakia was formed after World War II, basically by the Soviets' invasion, overcoming the Nazis, it was formed with the supervision of the Russian the Russians that became the USSR. But it never actually became under the Eastern Bloc or the Warsaw Pact. Officially part of the USSR, it was Czechoslovakia, its own country. Then, a little bit later, before we get to the third bullet down, it, in 1989, had what they called a Velvet Revolution, where it changed from being Czechoslovakia to two separate countries, Czechia and Slovakia, which was still in that same geographic shape of what Czechoslovakia was. So far, you with me? Did I confuse anyone? Okay. So that what you have here is, now I'm at the third bullet. I'll actually do the pointing. Do I have it? So you can see here that what you're depicted is Market Square in the old town of Prague. And it has much of the 14th century Romanesque architecture, and it used to be a central market. It has been preserved, obviously, as a green pedestrian place, and it has incredible differentiation from centuries from the 13th right up into the 20th century of architecture. Basically, what you're seeing here with this astronomical clock, this is the town hall. This is a famous place called the Tyne Cathedral, and later on I'll be showing you some of the rest of this square. But it had been, under King Charles IV, the seat of the Holy Roman Empire, which is very Catholic. It differentiates from the Church of England, and it basically was, I hope my history isn't incorrect, those of you historians, I'm doing my best to remember it. It basically was an enormous seat of Catholicism for a very long time. So you have here, in that preservation after World War II, extraordinary examples that go from architecture and art all the way up to Art Nouveau. It's a center of Art Nouveau. I mean, the buildings, you're going to see a few pictures, and the museums that house it are incredible. They have a Kafka museum, they have a Anfons Munka museum, and many of the places that you'll see in situ art. In situ means it's actually in the spot where it was formed. For example, the Lascaux caves in France, where you see the animals being herded, the paintings on the cave ceiling, you know what I'm talking about? Yep. That's in situ. Well, you're going to wonder, well, how could you have Art Nouveau in situ? I'm going to show you some examples. So this astronomical clock is a feast for everyone. Everyone gathers every day. You can have here signs of the zodiac, time of day, seasons of the year. Up here, you can barely see it on this. They have beautiful little sculptures where a clock, out from the clock at the striking of it, comes little animals that parade around. And then in these two little windows up here, you're going to see two little apostles overlooking us all. And it's just in case those of us can't read these, we can get the time of day too. So this gives a major gathering place in the market, every day, every hour. I'm going to show you a picture of Prague for a very important reason, because it'll help you see the next few pictures that I actually took more clearly. It's divided into four main sectors. What you're going to see is, this is above the lesser town. This is what crossed this Charles Bridge. They call this the castle section, or Prague Castle. Actually, it's a little misleading, because it's actually 18 acres of government buildings, forts, fortifications, and this beautiful St. Vitus Cathedral. I don't know if I can find it right now. Yeah, right there. You cross the Charles Bridge, there's two beautiful tower buildings, and you'll go into what's called the Old Town. I spent much of my night there, and I'm going to show you some nice pictures from it. And then down below, there's the New Town and St. Wenceslas. I think they call this a boulevard, yes, St. Wenceslas Boulevard, where that Velvet Revolution people gathered and it took place. And then there's a gorgeous preserved Jewish section called see if I can pronounce this right, Josephoff. And there's a gorgeous old and new synagogue, to which I didn't want to take too much time with Prague details, but if you ever go visit all four sections of the city. It's spectacular. So, now I'm going to try to show you some examples. The contrast is a little strong on this, but this is that Charles Bridge. Can you tell that this is a walkway? There are the two towers. These are all across that bridge, all the way across, about every 50 to 25 feet. There are these gorgeous sculptures. And then you walk all the way up to this 18 acres compound, and that's St. Vitus Cathedral. This is an example of a combination of a Romanesque going into, it's not Gothic, obviously, and then butting right up against it, the Belle Epoque, or what you'd call examples of sort of the Art Nouveau architecture of the time. Here's some more examples of it. Here's some of it in the square. This is still in Old Town. And here, I just happened to be walking down the street and saw this beautiful gated doorway. And there were doorways of beauty beyond description. I could have filled my whole camera with gorgeous doorways. And I looked and thought, oh my goodness, that certainly is Art Nouveau. And here's another example of it architecturally. So here's a C2 example. Again, I notice a window. Now, mind you, I'm not even looking at a tour book. I'm just walking because I've got 3 or 4 days, and I'm trying to maximize my time. And I look at this, and you can't really tell in the slide, but this says nicely in English, Art Nouveau. I said, yes, that's gorgeous. It is. Walked into the side door over here, and I walk in, and this is the restaurant behind those windows. Gorgeous. And to even make it more spectacular, there's a major stairway running beside this entrance and another long hallway extending. On the other side, they had a different restaurant done in this era with different gorgeous, spectacular chandeliers. Amazing. Here's where you would go and see, and I'll explain this title in a second. You can go see Alphonse Mucha. You'll know his artwork from his graphic arts, where the beautiful subjects, he had many lovely women that would pose with flowers beyond his wife, and his wife was well informed about the fact that they sometimes were not just models for him. But anyways, he had beautiful subjects to which he made these gorgeous Art Nouveau posters. I'm sure many of you have seen these. Have you seen these? Yes. And there's a picture of him, and he was quite a champion to go not just from his graphic arts, but to work on something what he called the Slavic epoch, where he painted 20, there's a whole museum devoted to this, 20 brilliant oils. They're massive. And he described the struggles of the Serbs, the Czechs, I think some of the Russians, and there was another culture too, that all combined and adhered not only around religious commonalities, but also cultural commonalities, bonds. So he is much loved by. Now, the difference between Art Nouveau and Art Deco, I thought, gee, is there any? Well, it is. This is where it is evoking some of the nature. Art Nouveau evokes the natural nature, and Art Deco brought more of the industrialization into Art Nouveau in that period of time. So if you're an art historian, I think I bastardized that a little bit, but stay with me. So this is definitely examples of both types. Clear? Questions? Okay. Get to the Alpine. Now, another important part of their cultural identity is for the middle of the 1700s right into the late 1900s. They were masters at puppetry. And when I was walking, again, just by chance down in the Old Town, I saw this beautiful window and noticed inside this collection of extraordinary puppets. And I remembered when I was a child growing up in the 60s that they were known, Czechoslovakia was known for puppetry. Well, it's not only historically important that it helped them preserve language, teaching folk traditions to help them bond against foreign dominations, and it became the years of from the turn of the 20th century to the end of the 20th century, it became a strong form of cultural identity for adults as well as children. All right. Here we are, back in that Old Town Square where we saw the astronomical clock, which was basically over here. The Tyne Cathedral, if you remember that one, is kind of back behind this building. But look at the gorgeous examples. These are original, not restored. Gorgeous examples. And this was done after the 14th century into the 1500s, 1600s. Now we're going to change art era. Now we're going to go down to, jumping ahead of Gothic. If you go from Romanesque to Gothic to, what's next? Claudia's stressing out. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. And if the light was on, I could tell you. But anyways, you're going right up to Baroque here. And Baroque is this big, clunky art form where here's an example of a hall where we met for a beautiful classic chamber music. This is Baroque. You can see it's very thick, it's very heavy. And beyond Baroque is Rococo, which goes bananas in taking Baroque to its ultimate extension in terms of the art history world. So this is an example, again, still on the square, where you can walk just around this whole market area and see evolutions of art periods. I had the good pleasure, it was extraordinary, that I heard that you could go from my hotel. He wasn't really a concierge, he was an innkeeper. He said, you can go down to the center of the town square and get very reasonable prices for tickets to get some chamber music. I said, that's phenomenal. Well, what did I get to hear? At the most nominal amount of money, I got to hear Dvorak, and he's Czech, okay? And I got to hear Vivaldi. He is Italian, but it didn't matter. For $9 in this incredible in situ experience where I heard the era of Baroque music evoked through a cultural master composer, Dvorak, and people that are just earning a little bit of extra cash to play their chamber music. It was extraordinary for $9. It was amazing, breathtaking. Okay. The mountains are coming, ladies and gentlemen. I moved on to Salzburg. You remember that little map? I've left Prague. I've gone now to Salzburg. Salzburg, Austrian, so famous for Mozart. Mozart, all these buildings are where they have the Mozart Festival annually. This is still used half as a cathedral, but also half as a place, as a venue to hear music. It was extraordinary. It's the land of Mozart, Sachertorte. Anyone ever eaten Sachertorte? Oh my God. I have one thumbs up. It is the most delicious chocolate cake I've ever eaten in my life. But I needed a week's pay to buy a box and bring it home, okay? It's exquisitely delicious. And Austrian dumplings, well, they're really meatballs. They're delicious. They call them dumplings. I'm giving you some side tastes of what some of the cultural experiences were. Of course, alpine skiing, greats. And the Hallstatter Sea. And I'm going to be telling you it's called Lake Hallstatt. And later on, there's going to be a little funny anecdote, if you will, about this word, sea. Stay with me, okay? And of course, the Viennese Waltz. So I'm leaving Salzburg after a 2-day stay. And what do I get to see? Day one, this beautiful pedestrian walkway. Gorgeous. Just the scenery it's spectacular. In town is medieval. Mostly some of it destroyed during the war. The farmlands outside, as you can see now, we're getting in the foothills of the Alps, is gorgeous. And I decided to take a little diversionary. Instead of meeting the beginning of my tour group on day one, I rented a car and drove the car to Lake Hallstatt because I wanted to see it. There I was. This is the little town, little village of Hallstatt. And Hallstatt is a salt mine town clinging to the edge of the mountain, and you can actually ride one of the lifts up into the salt mine. I just didn't have enough time. It's breathtakingly beautiful, and I'm going to try to give you some of the images. Typical, iconic, right? En route, what do I see? Gorgeous. They have an art institute right in town. This is just one of the little cottages that they had. And you can see the lake is right here behind us. Now I'm leaving, again, this area. There's the village of Hallstatt. And you can see how gorgeous it is. I had many other pictures, but there's so much alpine scenery to show you, I had to advance through this. Got back to Salzburg to begin my trip, and I got to go to hear gorgeous Austrian Viennese music, chamber music, of course, with vocal as well as musicians. I'm just showing you the crowd, I'm so sorry, but look at the gorgeous architecture in this palace. That's your soccer torch. Breathtakingly gorgeous. If you ever get a chance to pick one up, don't miss it. And I just wanted to give you a flavor of some of the regular lodgings and buildings in the area. Now, I'm going to go back to the map in a minute, but if you paid attention, yes, I did. Okay. If you remember, I said I started in Salzburg, then it went down to an area called in the Dolomites, and this town or the village that we went to, it's really a town, is called Bolzano, and it's in Italy. And they call it South Tyrol. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute, isn't this the Dolomites in Italy? Well, it's very interesting to understand this concept. Tyrolean is not only Austrian Tyrol or Tyrolean Alps, but it's also crests down into this area of the Dolomites. It's called Tyrolean. It's called Südtirol, and there is a North Tyrol as well, but the Dolomites are enveloped into that name called South Tyrol. So what you have is a blend not only of Italian culture, but Austrian culture. So many things are combined. Remember I talked to you about the dumplings that were served by the Austrians that were meatballs? Do you recall that part? Well, that's literally, we went up into the mountain, we went to this beautiful place to have supper, and I'm going to show you, I think, a picture of that. And I said, gee, these don't look like dumplings, to my neighbor to my left. She said, but they are. This is what they serve here in the South Tyrol, and they were delicious. So this image, I did not get to see because I was in the summer, but it does get that snowy. So I took a picture of that in my travels. This is where I stayed, in this gorgeous little family-run hotel, and left to go to this little lift. Now we're going to begin our ascent from this lift building. You can see these little streaks. This is me going inside the lift, the gondola, you see. And I'm sorry about the reflections, but you can see, oh, there's Dolomite. These are still foothills. Look at the breathtaking view. And there's going to be many of these ascents that I will share with you today. Many of these climbs. Even getting a view backwards down into that valley below. We're going up to a famous, large, massive, 23 square foot mile meadow called Alpi de Suisse. And what it is the largest alpine meadow, I think, in all of Europe. 23 square miles is one big meadow. So let's take a look. There are thousands, I'm exaggerating, hundreds of walking trails. Families go there. People fly in from New Jersey for a weekend just to walk these trails. Easy. Everybody has access to it. It's not hard. And what you'll find is their trails are well marked, and the challenges do differ as we walk further into the meadow. You can see there's some of the trails there, and look at that vista. Hundreds of these. So let me take you quietly through some of these images. Looking down, these are alpine meadows, and they have beautiful, just like in Switzerland, herds of sheep, but mostly cow, that they have tended to for centuries. And look at this. It's just breathtaking to me. This is one tiny shot from my gondola. One tiny shot.
So are those private homes, the buildings?
Every one of them. Good one in, yep. And what you're going to find is extraordinary perseverance, persistence, and adaptability in so much of the European cultures I got to visit during this trip. Extraordinary. That is not a travel mate of mine, but I was standing behind him and I said, okay, that depicts sort of the feeling that I have right now. I'm a little tired, would like to get a shot, and I'll take a picture of him relaxing. You have to go early. You have to watch your timing, because in many of these alpine areas, the mornings or afternoons cloud up at different times. So you have to be very observant about the weather. You have to be heads up, pack it and stay tuned. So it's not dangerous. Everybody does it, but they just are very prepared. Bring a light jacket, bring something in your knapsack, and hydrate, and have good shoes. I won't say a word. I'll just let you look. As you can see, the weather got better. Children are up there. Oftentimes unsupervised. I was very nervous. The trail was over here. This is a cliff that drops off over this famous area I think it's called Witch's Haven. And kids just run and play for hours and bring their pets, and it's just a beautiful free life up there. They're not, hurry up, stay with me, right next to me on the trail. It's just gorgeous. Really supporting the civilized nature of the beauty that they have here. So again, this is managed by Italy, and it's Italian. Again, family farming, the distant Dolomites surrounding the Alpe de Suisse. Now I gave you a very tiny taste of the Dolomites, and I had to move on through the famous Brenner Pass. Perhaps you've heard of it, an engineering marvel where I think Hannibal went through the Brenner Pass. I'm not quite sure, but anyways, the engineers, the European engineers, were very smart to follow the riverbed and have this high-speed expressway. And as you go from elevations and look down, you can see that there are many terraced hillsides. And yes, they do use the grapes to make the wine. Every regional wine that exists in Europe, they're very... they're closer to the vest. It's less corporately driven, although there are corporations that do run that, but it's much more from this region. This is the family or the group that made this wine. So you know your wines by the area of the country where the grape came from. Again, this is the terrain. This is the farming, and I hope you can see that adequately. Just by the way, I've always been looking at it on my laptop. Are those big enough when I did it? You can see them okay? Okay, good. How about you in the back? You can see it? Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Questions? No. Well, through the Brenner Pass, let me just go back for a second. We're going up to the Zugspitze in Germany. So we're going to the German Alps now, okay? So this is the beginning of the change towards some degree of German culture change. So you can see the housing differs a little bit more. Echoing, if you've ever been down the Rhine, some of those toll gate castles that were along the Rhine, but also still gorgeous alpine villages and typical iconic Tyrolean architecture in the towns. Now we're going to a place called Fussen eventually, but that is not Fussen, but I'm just, again, trying to sample it. Getting through the lift at the Zugspitze. What's great about the Zugspitze? Well, it's the highest mountain in Germany. And this lift is remarkable. You're definitely up there pretty quickly, and we haven't even gotten to past the tree line yet, and this is your view. Yes, that's the village below. The little dotty things, those are the villages, okay, that are down in the valley. And that's typical, the picture on the left is typical of an alpine terrain, is that the glacier carved through much of this limestone over those eons, and those valley floors are semi-flat, okay? So you're going to find in all of the commonality is that you have lakes like Lake Geneva in Switzerland, and then you'll have the back look in the Zugspitze where you can see that these valleys were carved by the glacier's removal. And now we're beginning to go very quickly up into above the tree line. And I got there to the summit. The summit is quite famous because of this gold cross. And there are people that walk along holding that wire handrail out just to touch that cross. Well, I'm not going to tell you any of that. There's also an observation deck that you have to get through first to get out to this. Okay, everybody with me so far? And you can see that the terrain is very rough. You can ski. This is summer. They do have some skiing here, but it's more for mountain climbers than a ski resort, because Zugspitze's weather is pretty rugged too. So I don't know if part of my tour group was over there, but it's a beautiful little place, and it's a little interesting. Let's see what my next slide is. Because just before I went to the little hut to have a little hot chocolate, because it was cold up there in the summer, I met a single woman during the tour that we partnered up and did things, because there were a lot of couples on this tour. It was only 28 people big. So, you didn't want to always be with a couple. So this other lady, she was 8 years my senior. She always said, come on, let's go do this. So I said, her name is Mary. Well, Mary, are you going to go walk up on that cross? She said, I don't know, are you? I said, well, I don't know. So I said, can we watch some of these people walk up there? So what's your guess? Audience, do you think I did or I didn't go? What do you think?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, I chickened out. I thought I'd rather come home and tell my kids about the experience that other people had. So she did take a picture of me walking down here. There's a little flattened platform, but no, I didn't get up there. That was a little too intimidating for Claudia, because Claudia was, let me see, I'm 74 now. Can somebody do the arithmetic? 2019 is how many years ago? That would be 7 years ago. So I was in my late 60s. I said, that's enough. I'll take pictures. But it was a blast, absolutely a blast, getting that close. And you have to be very careful. In between these two sides of the mountain, there are two different lifts. One comes up and down the German side, and then you go past this little place where you have your beer or your Wiener Schnitzel or your whatever you're having. And it's a little hot because it's the top of an observation booth. It's made out of wood. It's anchored down with all these heavy-duty cables. It's not that glass structure. It's a wooden thing. And if you go to the other lift on the other side, which is in this right picture, you'll end up in Austria. So the guide said, just be careful which lift you take down. If it's written in German, you're going back to Germany. If it's written in the Austrian language, you're going back to Austria. So I think it's German. Can anyone help me with that? Is it still German in Austria? I guess we're going by the government signals, you know what I mean? That's more typical of Austria. So I paid attention, and I got back down to the German side to catch the bus to go home to my hotel. All right, so, which is phenomenal. When we got back down, we were staying in the little village, medieval village called Fussen. There was a little festival going on there, and it was lovely. I didn't show you too many of those pictures. And here's that funny story about the C, S-E-E. This is Mary. This is the one that she's going to share with you much more courage than I had during this trip, and I'll explain it to you when we get to Chamonix, so pay attention, okay? Remind me about Mary if I forget to tell you about Mary when we get to Chamonix. Mary is looking pretty upset right now because she ordered sea bass, and she's pulling apart this fish, and she's saying, this just doesn't seem like sea bass to me. Well, little do we know that S-E-E means lake in German. So it was lake bass. So it was a ha-ha joke. So after we had a wonderful couple of days in Fussen, then we were beginning travel towards Neuschwanstein Castle, which is crazy. I think he's a Count or a Duke. Frederick's amazing castle. This is not it. Well, yeah, this is the front of it. And the history on his castle is he was wealthy because obviously he made it from, collecting his due rewards in his dukedom or county, and he ended up being so wealthy that he could just build this castle beyond anyone's wildest dreams. So what you're about to see is the castle, and you'll recognize it. It's quite famous. You know it, okay. There it is. The boilerplate for the Cinderella Castle in Orlando and all the other Disney worlds. And I'm not going to do much justice to you, but the rooms in here are beautiful, unique, showing his signs of wealth. And I guess it took them decades, hundreds, I think 100 years to build this because he kept changing it, and it's quite spectacular. And you can see the lakes behind it. The lakes, the Alps Sea, is the next transition we're going to make out of the German Alps. Now I'm going back to this little map. If you remember, we went to Austria, down to the Dolomites, up to the Zugspitze. Now we're going down to Switzerland to the Lauterbrunnen Valley. I'm going to try to show you. This is Fussen, which is corresponding to my 2 days in that cute little German medieval town on the Zugspitze. And you can see some of how close this area is. There's Innsbruck, Austria. These are such famous places. There's Bolzano, where we went up to the Dolomites. Down here, I'm going to go way down. You see the lakes are coming in. This is Lake Como and Lugano and Lecco. These are the 3 lakes. And although this map doesn't show you, just below is Milan, and where you're going to have the Winter Olympics this year. All right? Right over here, right here. Then you can go back up to St. Moritz. We're in Switzerland, obviously. Davos, you've heard of that. So what this little track is showing you is that the bus trip goes from Fussen. We quickly go through the little country of Liechtenstein, and we're going down to the Swiss Alps below Lake Lucerne. Lake Lucerne, I'm so sorry. Okay, so far so good? Yes. All right. And you can see I'm coming pretty close to the end. How am I doing my timing? Yeah, I'm doing good on timing too. So now we have this, as I told you, how those intermountain, the glacier carves these areas. This is one of the many. There's Lake Lucerne, Lake Zurich. They're just amazing. And even though you're going to say, wait a minute, that guy has an umbrella on his head. He's also holding a kite. I just couldn't catch him when the kite was up. But these two worked in tandem when we took a roadside stop en route to the Lauterbrunnen Valley. And we just happened to climb up to the top of the hill beside kind of like a 7-Eleven or something. It was along maybe a Howard Johnson. I don't know what it was. We could get a meal as well as snacks for the ride. And we ended up just climbing up to see, well, what's over this grassy knoll? Oh, there was Lake Lucerne. It was amazing. Just by chance. It was just, there's so many things to see in a very tight period of time. So when we got back on the road, we got this treat and miles of this until we got to, again, this area showing you another one of the lakes. As you can see, this is a village down below. This is a village over here. Again, that flattened area, not filled in by water this time, but by farmland. You can see the alpine terrain. You can see the Alps in the distance. And now we're going to and I mean this, I'm going to get emotional now. My favorite place on earth to this date is the Lauterbrunnen Valley. And it's not St. Moritz, it's not Grindelwald, it's not St. Moritz, but it's something that Rick Steves found when he was traveling many, many, many years ago. Who's familiar with Rick Steves' tours? It's only 2 of you. He's on PBS. He's on PBS all the time, okay? And you think I'm a sales agent for him. You can look at many of his tours and products over there. You can constantly see many of these things on television right now, okay? So it's on Channel 2, you can be able to see a lot of this. But what Rick Steves did was when he was young and in his 20s and 30s, I guess 20s, he traveled all over Europe keeping a notebook. And eventually he got to Afghanistan and realized travel is more than just seeing pretty places. So he has an opinion about travel being a political act, to know broaden your perspective, to know other ways of life. So what he did, this is extraordinary, he met this man in this beautiful Swiss valley we're about to go to in a minute, called Walt. And Walt had this little hostel, and this little hostel was kind of okay, and he figured out that people would stay in this place way up in the high part of the one side of the Lauterbrunnen Valley, and they would stay there, for a couple of nights, and he realized, I could maybe, Walt, could you teach me a little bit how you attract people to come and stay to your place, way in this remote place it was obviously well before internet, how do you do this? Walt taught him, because Walt used to work for Sabena Belgian World Airlines. Now, we're all of the age you probably know what that is. Okay, Sabena Belgian World Airlines before it collapsed. Okay, so he was a master at hospitality. And Walt taught Rick Steves so much of what he knows about travel and hospitality to construct this enormous business that he has today. Well, what I'm about to show you is that Rick Steves, in his family life, returns to this village called Gimmelwald every year out of respect to Walt and what Walt did. Now, I'm going to show you pictures before I start to get emotional. Okay, so here we go. This is the Lauterbrunnen Valley, and it means loud water. Why? Because as you can see, there's cliffs on one side and cliffs on the other. We have advanced all the way up into the town. This is the end of the town called Lauterbrunnen, but you can take an 18-mile bus ride inside into the valley. Because there are 13 waterfalls cascading down the east side, this is the west side of the valley, and the east side of the valley. And there's one of them. 13. And I hope you come to appreciate this and someday want to go yourself. It's breathtaking. This is my hotel room. This is the French door that I open up to see that waterfall. Those are those last two buildings I showed you. That's my hotel. And it wasn't she, but it was solid and like nothing I've ever stayed in my life. Remember Mary and the sea bass? Mary says to me, wow, did you know they lit it up last night? I said, yes, I do. So she said, do you think they shut it off? I said, what, the light or the water? She said, just a joke, Claudia. So, let me back up a second. So what you can do, let me back up all the way to this thing. You can take trams and lifts and trains up this side, and this side I'm going to teach you is the side where you've heard of these mountains. The Eiger, the Monk, and the Jungfrau, the Monster, the Monk, and the Young Maid. The three on this side, which I'll call for this purpose the west side. And on this side is the Schilthorn, made famous by James Bond when he went up in this circular, it travels around in a circle restaurant. I don't know, they shot the movie up there. And it's still spectacularly beautiful on both sides. But on each side you get trains and lifts that are so easy. You never have to have physical capability other than getting in and out of a tram or a train to get up to the top of these places. It's extraordinary. The Swiss have made it so easy for you and I to go see this and all the other tourists. So I took one up to this side first, which is going first to the town of Wengen. Wengen, W-E-N-G-N, Wengen. You can see we've climbed up above. You can see now we're getting to the top of the cliffs. I think what you're seeing here is the Monk and the Jungfrau, and the Eiger's hidden back over here, but never fear, I'm going to show it to you in a minute. Pretty good, huh?
Beautiful.
I know. Oh, it gets better. I'm going to have to speed it up now because I'm 5 minutes away from 2 o'clock. All right, so there were so many pictures that I had to curate out for you guys, but here's the Eiger over here. So you can see it kind of cradles you after a certain point when you get high up on the sides of these cliffs. And there's towns up there. I've passed Wengen already, and this is just nestled in the side. I mean, this is summertime, mind you. Look at how gorgeous this is. You just walk, and these are people's chalets. multiple families do live in them. In fact, one of them had a cute little restaurant under this awning where we had, I'm sorry, I stepped down into the garden and I didn't get the best picture, but we had dinner that night. Pretty good. Not only did we have dinner that night, but it was picked out of this garden that was right in front of it that they faithfully tend. Because imagine if you live in an avalanche-prone area. You keep your own garden because getting that produce up there every day isn't going to come from 7-Eleven, Stop and Shop, or whatever, even Aldi's, which is a European chain. You grow so much of your own. You have the cheese, you have the dairy, you have the meat, and you have your produce. So this is on the street of Wengen. How beautiful this it's technically an inn, but all along the sidewalk, it's a pedestrian way, it's a greenway, there's no cars up there. They allow trucks to come up to deliver produce and everything, people don't drive cars up there. So it's a pedestrian way, and what they do drive is powered bikes, and you get plenty of opportunity to mingle with people in very accessible culture. Now you're going even farther. I'm going on the eastern slope towards what I call the Schilthorn. Farther, I should say, in a different direction on the other side of the valley. I'm taking a train here to get up to the first lift to get to the Schilthorn. So I'm on a train, and there's a dairy farm. There's another village in the distance.
Wow.
I know. Now the cliffs are getting steeper. You can see we're still climbing. And now I've arrived in Gimmelwald. Now what I'm going to show you is this village is centuries old. Only 5 or 6 families have ever populated this place over these centuries. And what they have done is got the preservation of the Swiss government to establish this as an avalanche zone. So no changes have been made to the architecture or the population density here for this protection because it's an avalanche-prone district. It's not safe. But these people have carved out a living with these 5 to 6 families over centuries and sustained their life in this village, and it is remarkable. Again, this is looking up the slope from Gimmelwald. There's a beautiful little garden. This is an inn that you can go, and later on you'll see we stopped and had a hearty lunch at. I'm sorry, I have to speed it up. I apologize to you. The settings are just beyond belief beautiful. You can see the structures. The top structure typically is where things will be dried. Down below, things are stored for cooling or for different, preservative purposes. Nothing is done duplicitously. I took a walk up towards this place. This is not to rush. My son, I have a younger son who's 31 now, and sorry, this is going to touch me. Through the quality and the beautiful nature of this town we live in together, the Boy Scouts of America bonded my son with many wonderful human beings through scouting. So one of my son's name is Chris, and his friend Jack calls him up and says, "Hey, when you graduate from Villanova, you want to go to Europe?" My kid calls me up and said, "Mom, do we have money I can go to Europe?" I said, "I don't know. Do you have money you can go to Europe?" He said, "Well," I said, "Who's going to Europe?" He said, "Well, Jack's got 5 guys that are going to go." I said, "Go?" I said, "Go." He said, "Jack's got it all mapped out." And Jack he went through the EMT program in the show where he's now in training to be a doctor. So he's a great rheumatologist, by the way. He didn't want to do EMT work or emergency room work anymore. Anyways, Jack Jack, you're going to really take my son? And yeah, it's great, Mrs. Peters. He's going to be terrific. So I say to my kid, I know this guidebook over here. I've always wanted to go on these Rick Steves tours. Could you, Christopher, just take this book with you in your backpack? Because they're Eagle Scouts, by the way, most of these kids. Okay, just stick it in your backpack. It's only like 2 pounds. You'll make your weight. It's okay. He said, I don't want to take the book. I said, if you get over there, and after day 1 or 2, you find this book, you just throw it away. I don't care. He says, all right, like a good son. So they get to their first place. Now, they went, I'm not going to duplicate, but they did much more than Germany, Italy, so many places. They did much more than, they went to Norway. And their trip was like 17 days, and they saw most of Europe. They skipped the big cities. But Jack, unfortunately, didn't plan any places for them to sleep.
Oh, oops.
0.
Sleep on the train?
Oh, that was one of the plans. But unfortunately, Christopher, being the organizer that he is, takes the book out and starts pre-planning. And he's trying to call ahead. And Jack's thinking he's going to sleep on the side in Gimel. He says, Gimel, let's go to Gimmelwald. In his tent or his sleeping bag. And they were going early May, so there was still snow on the ground. Needless to say, the rest of this story will touch you, I hope, as it touched me. So I wanted to go up and see this place that my son got to stay called Hotel Mitterhorn. I thought, what's that about? So this was not it, but boy, that's right on the edge. This is a great story. This is a school in Gimmelwald. Now, mind you, there's, I don't know how many 5 families times, a few kids. There's not that many people that live in. They wanted to keep this school open, so they started an international, it became local. They got some interest through probably Rick Steves as well. But they advertised they saved this school. Imagine that. There's like 5 people international, 5 families that got to save that school, and it operates for the children in Gimmelwald. I just told it to you. So I kept walking through the trails. Mary came with me, and we're passing, look, there's Hotel Mitterhorn. It's pouring rain. It's really rough. Why did I want to see it? Because here's what happened before I show you this next picture. My son's up there saying, Mom, he's telling me this on the phone, I couldn't find anything for us to sleep in except this place in I found all the other places except for Gimmelwald with a place to sleep. He said, and we were walking along this path and we saw this inn or motel or whatever it is, and we knocked on the window and it seemed closed. But this man came to the door and he said, oh, lads, you guys look pretty wet. And he goes, Walt, do we have any place where they could sleep? And it really wasn't a functioning inn at that time. The man fed him, brought him in, and let them sleep there. Then they moved on and kept going, okay? To this day, I've owed my thanks and gratitude to find Walt and thank him for that kindness, because the man that let him in to see Walt actually ended up being a tour guide for Rick Steves, who used to run most of the tours around Chamonix and Mont Blanc. And he explained all the good things that they were going to go to when they next moved on to France. So I wanted to go thank Walt for what he did. Little did I know that Walt's 89 years old. And if you have to leave, I won't take it personally. That's quite all right. I'm sorry I'm going long. I hope you enjoyed it. So here I am, walking up in the rain, and I get to the door, and I'm stunned. Walt comes to the door, very old man. Remember those 5 families? They take turns taking care of him in his old age. Hotel Mitterhorn is only his home now. People bring him his food, wash his laundry. Obviously, the guy was like me and had been in his same clothes for this couple of days. And I explain who he is and what he did. This was 6 or 7 years after it happened. No, 4 or 5 years after it happened for my son. And in honor of this man, I took a picture, and I'm sorry, this is obviously not flattering for either of us, but Mary took this picture. I'm sorry, because it touched me that this man has to know how grateful a mom can be when you just are human to each other. You don't look for the almighty buck. So he died 6 months after I took this picture. Yeah. So then I was going to Schilthorn, the tippy top, so I climb again another lift, leaving the basin cities and the villages behind, go up to that circular rotunda where that circular drive is. And I apologize about running long, folks. This is the view from the summit. People walk out here, out to this little like holding place. It was a pretty large area that they made safe for tourists. Gorgeous, huh? These are the Swiss Alps. It's happy Claudia this time. Breathtaking, huh?
Astounding. Wow.
Going back down, pretty amazing. I mean, see why it's avalanche prone?
I think so.
Stopping at that little inn I pointed out earlier. It's very humble, you know, these skiers will come in the winter and they serve just, you know, it was just the most delicious soup I'd ever had. It probably is the moment, the emotions, you know. Hearty meal, and it was delicious. Good to be out on the road. And I didn't take a picture of the people that I met. But this is a Gimmelwald example how the villages have survived over these centuries. Here in the mountain hostel in Gimmelwald. This mountain hostel was built in 1563 and used by two families as their home. They kept their cows and goats in the basement barn. This is very typical of alpine living. And of course, they resided above it. In 1939, the house was turned into a hostel by Lena von Allmen. Then Petra and Walter Brunner bought the place in 1996, and they own it to this day. Their heart and soul was into the renovation. That just shows you how they do it. On the valley floor, as soon as I finish this, we're going to do Chamonix and we'll be done. This is the valley floor where I wanted to explore some of the other 13 waterfalls. Trommelbach is very famous because you can walk. They've engineered walkways up the side. This is the waterfall. They've engineered walkways so that you can go and have vista points all the way up. And I'm going to show you some of that interior of a waterfall in the Alpine.
Nice. Wow.
You can see walkway. That I just leaned in and took a peek. Saying goodbye, adieu, or I don't know how to speak German, but anyways, goodbye to Lauterbrunnen. Mary and I are kissing this little wooden statue goodbye, and they don't shut the water off at night.
No, they don't.
Now I'm going to Chamonix. You're leaving the Swiss Alps, going over to the French Alps, much more massive, and you'll see the difference in a minute. This is an example of the architecture in Chamonix. Beautiful. We're getting ready to go up in the tourist information booth to the Aiguille de Midi. It travels, it's the most dramatic change in elevation from the valley floor is 3,600, I think it's meters, I don't know, but it goes up to 12,600 feet up elevation. So it rides this incredible lift very quickly, the longest elevation, the most advanced, the longest span of a lift, I guess, in Europe. I think I did that justice. I'm not sure if I did, but there's the lift. Now you can see that we're above the tree line, but you can see it's still not completely snow-covered. It'll just get more and more snow-covered as we go up. These are large gondolas, by the way. Now you stop gondoling over here, and then you take an interior elevator inside this part of the mountain to the tippy top. I know. And this is what you get to see. So I'm thinking, this must be extraordinary beyond belief. No, it's kind of every day for those skiers. Out this little gate, people could just walk out and do it if you wanted to. You could go hiking or skiing. I just took a picture from inside. Didn't even test it out. Now I took the pictures from the observation area.
Wow. This is summer.
This is summer. You can ski all year long here. Now, I'm still up at that elevation, looking back down into Chamonix. You see the flat? Now looking down onto the observation desk from that point in the needle where I took the interior inside the mountain up to the top. So I'm looking down on the observation deck, down onto the valley of where Chamonix is. Chamonix is a pretty big town, but it's a town. Before I left, there was that, here was in meters, that's how high 12,600 is in meters. They have a glass thing, you have to wear these special slippers. It's glass floor too. So I stood in the box and yucked around, and somebody took a picture of me for that benefit, some of the people on my trip. And but look at the vista, it's like amazing. I'm pretending I'm falling. I think you can tell I didn't do such a good job at the play acting, but that's okay. And just to give you a little taste of Chamonix, down in the valley, this is a picture of the little hotel we stayed in. This is an example of what the interior was. And let us not forget, we are in France. So let's get a taste of some of the food and a little sample of the wine. And then we're going to say goodnight. These are regional wines. I think I got both a red and a white for you. So if you are into it, Mondelez. This is in the Savoie. Again, you can see the Savoie is the region. And if you're into it, these were delicious wines recommended by the owner of the shop. She said this is typical. These are an extraordinary meats and pastries. And we know what these are, macaron. And these are French pastries. And time for us to say goodbye to not only this portion of my 27-day trip, going down to Provence to catch my son off a plane flying into Marseille. And he takes me to Venice. And I then leave him after a couple of days in Venice, and I go on the next leg of my trip with Rick Steves, a different trip, different tour, called My Way Italy. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank the Council on Aging. And we have a minute or two. You can stay as you want for any questions you might want of me. And please, I'm not getting any kickback from Rick Steves. This is the only ephemera I kept I could find today. So
I would just say Rick Steves also does apps on your phone. We've done lots of tours abroad using history apps instead of paying to do a tour, and they're brilliant.
That's perfect. Any one of those guides you see up there, you could do yourself just by not only the apps, but I'm a paper girl. His assistance can get you to all those places, and it'll save you $4,000 to $5,000 plus airfare. Well, you have to do your own airfare and accommodations, but you see what I'm saying? You don't have to pay for a tour guide.
Are you going to put Northern Italy together for another one of these?
Yes.
Would you like me to?
Absolutely.
Oh, I would love to. It doesn't bore people. I don't know how I present it. I'm a little out of this. Like, I retired 10 years ago. I used to do this for a living, thinking, oh, this is a piece of cake. Then when I saw what PowerPoint does now, I was like, oh my God, I'm so out of it now. No bells and whistles. I'll just stay with the slides. Thank you. I'd love to.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work to put something together like that.
But it was fun. You know why? But watch this. I said to my kids, both of them, the one that went to Europe and the one that didn't, I think I should share this with you. This was a pretty good experience. They said, that would be good, Mom.
Yeah.
Well worth it.
That is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, too.